Hello, and welcome to the No Wrong Notes podcast, a show hosted by me, Veronica Kokis, holistic voice teacher and singer just like you. Grab a cup of tea, relax, and sit back as we discuss all things singing technique, mindset tips, and more so you can show up as the most confident and creative singer you can be. Hey y'all, and welcome to another episode of the No Wrong Notes podcast. This week, I've got a little bit of a treat for you guys. I sat down with my friend of almost 13 years, which I cannot believe, but I've known this girl since we were both music majors at Texas State. I sat down with my friend Celeste Morales, who is a Mexican-American soprano based in New York. And we sat down to chat about how she got to where she is as an artist, as an opera singer, and also how she navigates mental health, being such an active performer. But just a little bit about Celeste before we dive into things. Celeste Morales recently completed her second summer at the historic Merola Opera Program, performing as Rosalba in Catan's Florencia en el Amazonas in their Schwabacher Scenes concert. Recently, she debuted with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra as a vocal fellow at the Ravinia Steens Institute, and in the spring of 2024, will reprise the role of La Malinke in her native hometown of San Antonio, Texas. Guys, I am so excited for y'all to hear this conversation. I hope you guys get some good nuggets of wisdom from Celeste. Let's dive right into things. All right, Celeste, I'm so glad that you're here today. I would love to start things off by having you introduce yourself to the audience. You know, who are you? What do you do? And how did you get to where you are today as an artist?
Yes, so my name is Celeste Morales. I am an artist. I like to say artist first before opera singer, though that is primarily what I go for. It is not something that I feel encompasses me 100%. I love to sing all various types of music and styles and genres, and that's kind of how I grew up as a kid, just loving music. So I would say that led me to wanting to be a music teacher. So I got my music ed degree at Texas State, and that's where we met, in the wonderful Dr. Worthington studio. And then realized teaching a class was not for me, so was very curious about operas. That was something that was not on my radar ever. And went to Manhattan School of Music for my vocal performance degree. And then have been living in New York City for 6-7 years and doing auditions and various gigs and trying to get my operatic career started, and that's kind of where I am. And yeah, I consider myself a teacher as well, more on the private side of one-on-one students. And then I also am very curious about the business side of art administration, so that's something that I'm also following as well.
Yes, that is awesome. I just wanted to rewind a little bit to something you said before about changing your path from music education to, or, you know, obviously you got your degree in music education, but pivoting from like, I want to go into the classroom to, I want to perform on stage and sing. What do you feel like was the catalyst for that? What inspired that shift? And like, why did you feel like, I need to do this? I cannot live without creating this kind of art.
Well, I think growing up, as I said, music has been a huge part of my life, and I love all kinds, but also I loved performing. In general, I loved performing for an audience. I was always gravitating towards that and felt like I had a calling, you say, or a very internal thing where it was always a giving thing between me and an audience, and I always felt that to be a very special, important message that I wanted to always have with me. So I think when I got started in my undergrad and got the chance to perform in a main stage role with costumes and lights. After that performance, I left feeling so high off of such amazing like excitement and joy and collaborative work. I think the collaborative process of it all, and then that momentum to then giving it to all these people was something that finally connected in a way that I never felt before. And that's what made me curious to learn more about opera. And what's kind of funny about that is, I don't know if I ever told you this, Veronica, but before doing my master's, that I had a year in between where I was living with my parents and I was trying to
Yes.
figure out
Yeah.
what was the next step. And that's when I was getting ready for auditions and also working all these crazy jobs. And even then I wasn't really sure if I was passionate about opera. I didn't know then. And when I got accepted into the school, I didn't know then. And even going to the school, I didn't know then. Because it was something that I wasn't introduced to. I didn't learn.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I was basically going off of pure curiosity and gut. It
Wow.
wasn't until I finished my master's degree and I went through that training and all of that stuff that I realized this is a really special like niche, and this is a really special art form that I really do love. And it's something that, and it's crazy now to think back that like it's been 10 years, like I think almost 10 years of doing this career.
Oh my gosh, yes. I just was thinking, I was like, oh yeah, it's 2024. I was
Yeah.
like, it's been a long time. Wow, that is so amazing. I did not know that. So love hearing that perspective and also just like following your curiosity. That's something I really encourage in my students, and I love hearing that. Getting more into kind of the classical music and opera side of things, this might be a little bit controversial, but there are people out there that believe classical music and opera is dying. You know, I see people on social media, like in comment sections, talking about how it's dying and like how nobody's going to see the opera and that sort of thing. How do you feel about that statement? And how do you think we can increase access and appreciation for classical music and opera?
That's so interesting that you say you read comments like that, because yeah, that comes up for me once in a while, but I'm wondering, what do people say? This is very I mean, of course, like I've always heard, opera is a dying art form, blah blah
Sure.
blah. But what I'm at before I answer, what do people say? Like I'm curious to.
Well, I've
And
seen.
why do they defend their answer as well?
Right. Right? I do feel like it's one of those things that people have been saying for like ever. I mean, this is something that you would hear probably even like a century ago, you know, and just, I mean, it's something that people have always said. But the comments that I see a lot, or things that I hear even from people when I ask them, like, what is keeping you from going to more operas and classical music? And when I'm talking to them about their lack of appreciation for that art, people will say, well, I can't understand it. Especially when it comes to opera, they're like, I can't understand what the singers are saying on stage. And it's like, of course, like super titles and things like that. So it's like, of course, if it's in a foreign language, you can obviously follow along. It's just like, I mean, that would be like watching like a foreign language film in the theater, you know? But I think it's that even in operas that are in English, they feel like they can't distinguish sometimes what the singers are saying on stage and they can't follow the plot as easily. So I hear that, and I hear things like, oh, well, it's so boring, or like it costs so much to go see these things. And so, yeah, those are just some of the things I've heard and seen. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Those are all very valid reasons, some that I've heard before. And I think my counter question to that is always like, do you want it to die? You know,
Ooh,
because
yeah.
I feel like people harp on this all the time where they're like, opera's dying, opera's dying. And I've heard that for, ever since I entered the career. I think a better question to ask is, what are we doing to make this accessible for people? What are we doing to carry it on for years and years? how are we helping, you know, marginalized artists and composers? How are we helping them so that way they can connect with the communities that they're trying to offer their music to or speak to? I
Mm-hmm.
think that when I was starting off in my master's, I didn't know much about it, and I could very much look at it from an audience point of view where it's very intimidating. It is.
Yeah.
It is still very classist in a lot of ways, and it can come off that way, it can rub off that way. Um, and in some ways of looking at it, it still is that way. And that's where there needs to still be more change. I think that people are trying to do better at making it accessible, in terms of, projecting the words not just right in front of you when you're sitting down, but also in the actual production. When I went to go see Florencia en el Amazonas, the Spanish opera, the words were right on the stage,
Oh,
projected on a
nice.
back wall. So it was
Yeah.
nice and big, and you could see it, you could read it instead of just reading it, on a small little screen. Granted, it was in English, so if anybody didn't know English, they wouldn't be able to partake in seeing it in a grander scale. But, I think that's just one of the ways people try to be better with that. Um, I do think that opera is complicated in that the the length of it can be a problem.
Sure.
The texture of it in terms of like linguistically like can be hard for people to digest because it is still old. It's
Oh,
old
yeah.
in that sense where you do have to really like your mind is always going because you have to try to understand what's happening.
Sure.
There's a lot of you're trying to interpret into your own language. You're trying to also pay attention to the singing. You're also trying to pay attention to the little nuances that people are doing on stage to help fill the story. Like there's so much that's happening that it can be quite overwhelming. One of my favorite things is introducing opera to people who've never watched it or who've never taken part in it. Sometimes I take on dates, I'll take people to the opera. I'll find like something that is
I love that.
digestible, like Carmen or La Boheme or
Uh-huh.
something that I know that I can also explain to them beforehand or during or after. And they've come away like, oh wow, or with questions or things like that. I know that opera companies are trying to be more forward thinking in terms of bringing it to schools and to
Sure.
children and incorporating a breakdown of the stories so that way they can understand it as well. I don't like to believe that opera is dying,
Me
but I
neither.
do think there is a lot of holes and there's a lot of change that needs to happen for sure.
Yeah.
It could, because if not, then it could lead to that. But I try to think of it in how can I help it keep its
Yeah.
vibrancy, keep its color, keep its energy because I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love what you were saying about these companies. Obviously, that's something I kind of already knew with like outreach programs, bringing more of this into schools. Because I do think that early exposure to these kinds of art forms, as much as we can get kids and teenagers listening to this art and watching it, the more that I think there's appreciation for it. Because I think of how I got into music and how I got interested in majoring in music. It was all through my involvement in choir, singing in choir, and like being really excited about it. And a lot of the music that we would sing in choir was not exclusively like pop music. It's like it kind of ranges from like Baroque to, more modern classical pieces. When it comes to like saying things like opera is dying and like thinking about education and exposing younger audiences to these things, that's part of it. Is like when you bring it into where these kids are at, the more likely they'll be drawn to it. So I love that you were saying that. Let's move along here. Okay, next question. I love the positive energy that you radiate on social media and appreciate that you want to bring awareness to mental health in the arts through your platform. How has mental health impacted your career as an opera singer?
Woo! What a question. It's funny because we talked about this during 2020 and now here
Yes.
we are. It almost feels like nothing has changed. But of course, we know that a lot has changed. And mental health is very important. I mean, in general, but I think as an artist, as a freelance anything, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business person, if you're somebody trying to make money with something that is like the dream or unattainable in their eyes, it is very difficult because you are your own boss. So you have to have your schedule. You have to create the opportunities. You have to have a lot of trust in other people and also yourself. And if those things start to falter in any way, they can affect your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you put to what I've learned time and time again, which is something I'm still always learning, is trying to have enough balance.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of not putting all my eggs into this career. I have to remember to have hobbies. I have to remember to take rest. I have to remember to say no and say no again. And also realize that I don't have to be comparing myself to anybody else on social media or otherwise. That this really is a world that I'm creating and that I have the power to create. But it's not always easy. Of course, there are times when things will be continuous and I'll have one musical thing after the other. So the energy, the momentum is there. But then when you have to go back home and there's not that gig that's coming up in a month or two or three or et cetera, and you have to figure it out, it is hard because although realistically I would love to be like, this is my full-time thing, that's not what it's been. It comes in waves. And so I can't expect myself to put everything into it and let myself go with that as well if I don't take time to like remind myself to live, and to
Yeah.
that way I can then put it into my art and give that which the 2020 honestly taught me a lot about. That was one of the times where I really, yeah, first time really took a step back and invested, and I didn't do anything related to opera that entire time. And I know some people who did, who went for
Mm-hmm.
everything,
Yeah.
for every competition, practiced every day, and that was just not something that I could do, and I needed to listen to myself and be like, no, you know, you need to invest back into yourself. So that's something I do carry with me, like from that point. Um,
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I love what you were saying about not putting all of your eggs in one basket, because I think about what you were saying earlier about anyone who does any freelance work, whether you are an artist, opera singer, teacher, like private teacher, or entrepreneur. I think when you put all of your eggs in one basket, that puts so much pressure on like your dreams and your goals. And that's really difficult. I always go back to, I mean, I know that you're into this as well. I always go back to and the kind of conversation of manifestation where, you hear don't put too much pressure on your manifestation, the thing that you want to like come into fruition. Because I think that when we kind of let go and when we kind of take those moments to really like focus on ourselves or focus on the next best thing that we can do, even if that's doing some work that's outside of what we maybe really want to do, which is sing or, teach and whatnot. Doing that next best thing for us, I think, is often the best route to go. And then what I think is funny about life is that once you are kind of taking care of yourself or doing that next best thing, I feel that then your manifestations and the things that you're kind of looking to do just tend to like pop up and show up, which I think is really, really neat. So I love hearing you share all of that. That was awesome. Kind of pivoting a little bit more towards anxiety. Singers often ask me for advice regarding performance anxiety and anxiety over sharing their music on social media as well. What advice would you have for someone who struggles with anxiety in their singing and maybe sharing themselves in public spaces or online?
Yeah, anxiety in singing is something that is normal. I would have to tell them it's normal
Absolutely, yeah.
and that it's okay to feel all these things. And because it's something that's personal, it's something that you love, that you've put time and effort into, and you only feel that way because you care and because you want to give your best, and we try to reach this level of perfection that doesn't exist. But I know deep down that people always want to do their best. At least that's what I always want to do every time, or at least get better and better each time. I want to get better and better. Um, I think it's really important. I know people have their own practices that they do before an audition or before they're having a concert or a recital or they're having, anything that they're singing for, no matter big or small. Some people like to do yoga before. Some people like to listen to a podcast or read a book or do some 5-minute meditation or breath work, or take a walk. There are things that people have done before to kind of slow down their breathing. I think breath work is really important. And I definitely love meditation in that way, especially before a performance. I just did a competition in Spain and they put us in a room. They said, "Oh, you'll have a warm-up room." I was like, "Perfect, great." So I go into this warm-up room. There's 4 or 5 singers all warming up at the same time.
Nice.
They also had a cameraman and a picture person who was getting video footage and media coverage of what we were doing, because they want that, they need that, and that's their own thing that they do to cover the competition, which is fine. But it is jarring to step in and then your mind's like, And younger me would have been freaking out, okay?
For real.
I've been comparing myself to all these different voices, even if it wasn't my voice type. And I just had to take a moment and realize I need to do what I need to do right now,
Yeah.
which is warm up my voice. Focus on what you need to do and calm yourself, right? So after I did what I needed to do and I warmed up in front of people and on the piano saying what I needed, whatever, I stepped outside of the room and there was some seats near the wall, thank God. And I just sat down and I meditated and I just calmed myself, because if I would have stayed in that room for another 20 minutes, I would have gone berserko. But what I'm saying is find a quiet moment with yourself if that's what you like to do, and just center yourself in that. I think it's important to stay focused. And if your focus is to do a good job at this or that, then try to bring yourself back to remembering that. In terms of sharing, that was something that I have learned along the way. And what I've realized is if I'm okay with sharing my voice in front of a group of people, 10 to thousands, if I'm okay with doing that and I'm okay with mustering up the courage to get up there and sing, then I can do that on social media. Why?
Sure, yeah.
Because I want to share my voice. That is it. I want to share the work that I'm doing. I want to share this important project that my friend helped me get involved with, or a story that they're trying to help me bring out to other audiences. I think about it in collaborative ways. And this is something that is not just about me. This is something that involves a whole team of people, or involves me and the pianist. We're creating this together. It's not just about me. It's not, that saying, it's not just about you.
Yes, it's not just about you.
Yeah. And I think that we get into this social media thing where it's like, it can look like that. Like if you look at my page, it'll look like it's about me.
Sure, yeah. You're promoting yourself, you're promoting your brand and you as an artist, right?
Yeah, exactly. But if you have like a mission or a vision statement, this sounds so quirky, but like it's true. If you have your why in the
Yep.
back of your head, none of it matters. None of
Exactly.
that judgment about towards yourself or what other people do matters. And I know a lot of people still in my opera circle, they are very hard on themselves when it comes to sharing. They can't do it. And I always try to tell them, like, yes, you can. You can. You just got to get out of yourself and look at it in the bigger picture, you know?
Yes.
I think we don't want to be looked at as, I'm being too confident, or I'm being too eager, or like, what if somebody judges what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
No, you know, like if they
Yeah.
do, whatever, who cares?
Exactly. Because it's like there's always going to be people in the comments section, especially if you're posting your music on social media, that have something mean or something stupid to say. Like, for real, there's always going to be someone in the comment section with, like, that sounded really nasal, or like, there's someone
Oh yeah.
always has something to say about it. And the question is, like, are you going to let that hold you back? It's not about you, it's about sharing the art and sharing this music, especially when you're collaborating with other people. If you are recording with other people, it really isn't just about you. So I love that. I love that perspective. Um, as we dive into 2024, you were mentioning progress and growth a few moments ago, with people being really hard on themselves as they're kind of working towards artistic success, working towards improvement, and that kind of thing. How do you approach your own goals in singing and in life? And how do you navigate roadblocks that come up as you pursue your goals, whether that is artistically or otherwise?
So that has also changed throughout the years in terms of how I set goals. Sometimes it's all up here in my brain, and I have years, like if I don't get this goal by this year, I'll have little pivots that I will navigate. But I used to be very good at writing things down. I still am in a way. I still keep like a calendar, and I like to color code things, and I like to make sure that it's a visual thing as well. And recently what I've got into is bullet journaling and doing
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
um journaling thing as a way of when I complete something, or when I'm feeling not great about something. So like recently we were talking about kind of manifestation. I always mentally prepare for something 3 weeks or a month in advance in terms of a competition or an audition, because I know now that my tendencies are to sabotage, to self sabotage. And if I want to go there, I can go there. But I have to tell myself, like, I'm a professional and I know actually what I'm doing. and and in order to get to that point to where I step on the stage and I'm very confident, I have to mentally prepare. So like bullet journaling and writing down my thoughts, even if I'm not feeling the best that day, or feeling how I want to feel on the day of this audition or on the week of this competition, is very helpful to me. And this is just one way that I've prepared as I go. And this was something that I did before this competition, because this was my first international competition that I was doing, singing for very major houses all over Europe. And
Wow.
well, the possibility to debut a new aria, which I was very, very scared about doing, because I didn't have enough practice time and performance time and that I thought I did. And so I really had to get it together. And before I left, I did get it together. And it came together. And coaches were like, "You're ready. Teachers, you're ready. You are ready." And it was something that I already knew before I left. But when you take the time to mentally prepare,
Mm.
even if you're not in the best mindset then, you have to help yourself get to that point. And it's going to take some time, and it's going to take your own personal development to sit down with yourself ask yourself the hard questions, write it down, jot it down, even if it's to say, I am terrified right now.
Yeah.
I am terrified. I am scared. I don't know how I'm going to do. Because to say that I'm going to be 100 every performance is not realistic.
Yeah.
Even my mentors or the famous, opera singers that I love and I follow were never at their 100%. They tried to get there consistently, and that's what made them who they are. But they didn't give up. They kept going. And I think that's what's helped me. But I've developed that myself as I've gone through this many, many times and narrowed in on what are my tendencies. What is the ways that I self-sabotage myself, and how can I, if I want to get over here, how do I help myself get over here?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I love too how you were talking about how you journal it out, just kind of writing it out. And even if you're feeling terrible, if you are having those moments where you're noticing maybe some of these tendencies kind of creeping in, writing about it and writing it all out, right? And kind of processing those emotions, processing those feelings. And then thinking, and it really sounds like you're doing a lot of like manifestation with like kind of vision, or like kind of like writing out like, this is where I want to be, and this is where this is kind of what I want it to be like and what I want to experience. So God, I love that. And also love how it all came together too, where you were like, okay, I gotta get it together. Oh my gosh. Like, and then it all came together. Like all the coaches and teachers were like, you're ready. So it's really cool how writing these things down, putting these things out in the universe, how it can all work for you, which is really cool.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about that is I didn't move on in that competition to debut that new aria. But this is competition season, and there are more competitions coming. So now I'm at the point where I am ready to sing that, right?
Yeah.
So all of that work was not for nothing. All of that, even if it was a no at this competition, it's going to be a yes somewhere else, and I'm going to be ready and I'm going to be prepared. So all of that work that sometimes feels like it's going nowhere, it actually is going somewhere. It's just you're like you said, manifestation and kind of letting the universe take care of you and realizing like it's going to come. You just got to trust. Like trust that it's going to be there.
Yes, that's honestly it, right? It's just kind of like it's doing the work. And also trusting that, I trust that this work that I'm doing now will pay off later, that this isn't all just for naught, but that this is bringing me closer to where I want to go. I'm a total believer in that with each step we're taking, whether it's working towards our singing goals or, whatever else that it is that we're moving towards in life, that there are no wrong turns. There's things that happen that maybe aren't what we expected, like maybe not moving on in a competition or like the million other things that can go wrong in life. And so it's very easy to look at those things and be like, well, man, I'm trash, or like or life is working against me. And it's like,
that's the self-sabotage I'm talking about. That's that self-sabotage that's like, nothing is working. Nothing that I do is working, or nothing's paying off. But that's not true.
Yeah, it's like, yes, these things are difficult. We have these difficult moments that we go through as artists, as people, but it's like, that's life. And, you either take those things and learn from them and you roll with them and acknowledge what you went through and keep going, or you kind of roll over, but it's like, I love all of this. This is really, really awesome. Well, I would love to end things with some rapid fire. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
I guess.
Okay, I promise these are softballs, okay? These are like real, hopefully easy. Okay.
Oh, wait, when you say rapid fire, like I just answer whatever comes to the top of my head, right?
Yeah, you can take a beat to think about it for a second. Okay. So our first rapid fire is coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Classical, musical theater, or pop rock?
Ooh. Is this like just listening to?
Let's say singing first.
Classical.
Okay, so singing classical, listening to classical, musical theater, or pop rock.
Pop rock.
Pop rock. Favorite singer?
You know this question. You know the answer. JoJo. If you don't know who JoJo is, it's not JoJo Siwa. Do not say that in front of my presence. It's JoJo. Go look up her stuff. You'll love her. Thank you.
Yes, JoJo. Oh my God. Okay, next topic. Best book you've read recently. This could be also past 5 years if it's a book you read in the last like 5 years or so.
Okay, Educated by Tara Westover.
Yes.
Great book. Wow.
Such
Really
a good book.
inspiring book. I'm reading Letting Go right now.
Oh. Who's it by?
David Hawkins.
Okay,
It's
cool.
called Letting Go, the Pathway of Surrender.
Nice.
And, yeah, as an artist, I have a hard time with letting go sometimes, or going too much in the past or melancholy stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So, it's really important. And it talks about desire and how you can want something really, really, really bad, and actually you're omitting energy that's not the energy that you want to bring out when you really want something. Like you said, manifestation is about, yes, writing it down, thinking about it, all the details that come into what you want, but then after that, literally letting it go and letting the universe do it for you. You can't always like want, because that's not the energy that is going to come back to you. It's going to be something opposite, which, yeah.
Yes, I love that. That sounds great. What is the last thing you binged on Netflix or other streaming services?
Oh, what is it? Succession.
Oh my God. Okay, I've tried to watch that show like 50 million times and I cannot get past like the second or third episode.
Yeah, it can take a while, but it's
yeah, good. I heard it's like Mad Men, where it's like kind of like a slow burn, but I might have to give it another try.
It's kind of like those old like Roman stories. It's actually very I don't even know, like Hamlet, or like it very much is a look into what America looks like right now, but through an old story that has been going on for such a long time. And it only progresses as you watch. You have to like keep watching and thinking of it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to give it another try. So your favorite form of self-care?
Okay, this might be really weird, but like I love the smell of things recently. So like different perfumes or body sprays or soaps or essential oils or an oil diffuser. I want to always smell things that are good. So like I'll buy a new soap or something, or a new fragrance, and yeah, I love the smell of that stuff.
I love that. What is your favorite practice tip?
Okay, warming up. I don't know why people think you don't have to do this. You must warm up. You must warm up every time you sing. It can't be like on a whim, like 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. It's a must, like in a practice session. You cannot just go in a practice and just sing, because your voice is not going to be in a place of development or developing further when you haven't given it the time to actually warm up, and practice these things that your teacher has given you. It's like rolling out of bed and asking somebody to sing like, I don't know, Mozart Requiem or something dumb. And it's like, actually no, I gotta warm up,
Absolutely. Well, Celeste, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I loved hearing your takes on working as an artist in the opera world and mental health, hearing all of these things. I really appreciate you joining me here. And yeah, I thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm so proud of everything that you've done. I mean, you've really like put 100% into your business and yourself and giving back, and it's just a beautiful thing to witness. And I just want to say to all of your students or whoever may be listening, or to you, like, to continue the course, like keep going and be brave enough to just like share your art, just keep sharing, because we really do need it. We really, really do.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that is a wrap for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Celeste. I had such a good time recording it with her, and I hope you guys got some good nuggets of wisdom from her. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or drop a comment on YouTube. And if you want to follow along for more singing tips and more singing talk, you can follow me on Instagram, on TikTok. All of those links are down below. And until next time, happy singing, y'all.